Welcome to the debate. Imagine a silence in your home that doesn't feel peaceful, but feels, well, like a loaded weapon.
Right, a silence designed specifically to punish you.
Exactly. Today, we're looking at people who hide behind a mask of social anxiety, maybe introversion or even depression, but they are actually engaging in something incredibly predatory: covert narcissism.
Yeah, and we are decoding the specific, subtle behavioral patterns of this disorder because it's insidious.
It really is. Now, I argue that covert narcissism is fundamentally a calculated camouflage. It's a predatory stance designed to extract power and narcissistic supply through, weaponized pity and passive aggression.
And I argue that the true defining mechanism of covert narcissism isn't just about the internal calculations of the abuser. It's the structural devastation of the victim's reality. It systematically induces trauma responses that the victim mistakenly internalizes as their own toxic behavior. Frankly, if we only look at the narcissist, we miss the crime scene entirely.
Well, let's start by looking at that camouflage, because we have to define exactly what we are dealing with from a behavioral profiling perspective.
Sure.
To really understand his condition, we look at the 5-factor model of personality, often called the Big Five. It evaluates extroversion, agreeableness, openness, conscientiousness, and neuroticism.
Right, the standard psychological metric.
Exactly. And when you run a covert narcissist through that model, the profile is chilling.
It's a complete inversion of what people typically associate with narcissism.
It really is. Most people picture the grandiose narcissist, the loud, boastful CEO type who takes up all the oxygen in the room. But the covert narcissist presents with very low extroversion. They are the ones sitting quietly in the corner, looking shy or reserved.
But beneath that quiet exterior
lies incredibly low agreeableness, which behaviorally translates to extreme antagonism. And they have exceptionally high neuroticism, meaning they are emotionally volatile and easily threatened.
Right. They are just shy. They are highly reactive to any perceived slight.
And this brings us to a crucial clinical distinction. They possess what the literature calls cold empathy.
Oh, this is the part that is so misunderstood.
Right? A lot of people assume narcissists lack empathy entirely, but that's not exactly true. Their cognitive empathy, their ability to read the room, track social dynamics, and know exactly what you are feeling is fully intact.
Which makes them incredibly dangerous. They can read you like a book.
Precisely. But what they lack is affective empathy. They can see you crying, and they know exactly why you're crying, but they do not actually feel any internal resonance with your sadness.
They don't care.
They literally don't care about your suffering. They merely calculate how your distress inconveniences them, or worse, how it can be leveraged to establish dominance. It is a highly effective, predatory camouflage.
See, I come at it from an entirely different way, because focusing solely on that internal calculus misses the actual emotional toll.
How so?
Well, the most terrifying aspect of covert narcissism isn't the camouflage itself. It is the absolute destruction of the victim's sanity. When you live in close proximity to someone operating with that cold empathy you just described, your nervous system literally rewires itself.
Rewires itself? That sounds a bit extreme.
It's not. The psychotherapist Pete Walker coined the term fleas to describe this exact mechanism. You know the phrase, if you lie down with dogs, you get fleas?
Right.
Victims unconsciously absorb the fear-based, survival behaviors of the narcissist. They become hypervigilant. They walk on eggshells, constantly scanning the room to gauge the narcissist's mood before they even dare to speak.
So they adopt defensive mechanisms just to, navigate the home environment safely?
Exactly. And the chilling reality is that the victim internalizes this abuse. Because the tension is so thick, the victim might eventually react explosively when a boundary is finally crossed, or they might just shut down completely.
And I assume the narcissist uses that reaction against them.
Oh, absolutely. When the victim breaks, the narcissist points the finger at them. The victim is left living in a constant state of genuine dread, agonizing over the question, am I the narcissist?
Okay, look, I see why you think that, but let me give you a different perspective on how these behaviors actually manifest in real time. Because if someone is listening right now and thinking, well, I withdraw when I'm overwhelmed, does that make me toxic? We have to look at the mechanism of intent.
Intent is everything here.
This withdrawal is entirely different. It is an active punishment.
It's a withholding of presence as a form of control.
Yes, it is what I call withdrawn self-centeredness. And they execute this through micro-insults.
Give me an example.
Imagine coming home from work and sharing a story about your day. The covert narcissist doesn't yell at you to shut up. Instead, they offer a condescending glare, a perfectly timed eye roll, an impolite heavy yawn right in the middle of your sentence, or a deep, long sigh.
Those tiny, deniable actions.
Exactly. They are completely deniable, but they project this quiet smugness. They aren't avoiding interaction out of fear. They are exerting superiority because the world is failing to give them the automatic, unearned adoration they secretly believe they are owed.
Wait, look at how they use this exact behavior to destroy the victim's nervous system. You're analyzing the eye roll. I'm analyzing the partner who just had their reality shattered by it.
Shattered by an eye roll?
Yes! From the victim's perspective, that sigh, that silent treatment, it forces them into an exhausting, endless cycle of trying to manage an incredibly fragile ego.
You mean the victim starts doing all the emotional labor?
All of it. The victim is desperate to fix whatever unspoken rule they supposedly broke. And the narcissist won't tell them what's wrong. They'll just say, I'm fine, in a tone absolutely dripping with contempt.
Right.
When the victim finally breaks down from the sheer pressure, whether they shut down emotionally or have a reactive outburst like we talked about, the narcissist calmly labels them as selfish or unstable.
Reversing the roles.
Yes, and this triggers the victim's deepest trauma responses. The old wiring lights up, telling the victim, I am the problem. I was always the problem.
Ugh. That's an interesting point, though. I have to admit I'm struggling with the clinical logic here.
Why?
I understand the devastation, but if a predator uses camouflage to hunt, we don't focus on the confusion of the prey to understand the mechanism of the hunt. We focus on the biology of the camouflage. If someone rolls their eyes at you every day or uses the silent treatment repeatedly, at what point does survival instincts stop covering for them? I mean, aren't these victims willfully ignoring the manipulation because they want to, save the narcissist?
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. It is absolutely not willful ignorance. What you are describing is a well-documented psychological phenomenon that Dr. Jennifer Freyd defines as betrayal blindness.
Betrayal blindness. Okay, break that down for me. How does the adult brain maintain a blind spot to abuse for years?
Because it is an unconscious biological survival mechanism. Think about how the human brain prioritizes attachment. When the person abusing you is the exact same person you rely on for love, safety, or financial stability, your brain is put in an impossible bind.
The threat is coming from inside the house, so to speak.
Exactly. Recognizing the abuse would mean severing the attachment, which the primal brain perceives as a literal threat to survival.
So the brain filters out the threat to keep the relationship intact.
Yes. To survive the relationship, the victim's mind forms a blind spot. The narcissist's passive aggression is so subtle, the sighs, the withholding of affection, that the victim's brain actively rationalizes it. They tell themselves, oh, he's just stressed from work, or she just has a lot on her plate right now.
Huh.
They aren't choosing to be blind. Their nervous system is actively protecting them from the devastating reality of the betrayal.
Well, that makes sense structurally. But let's look at how that dynamic is actively, intentionally engineered by the narcissist, specifically through weaponized incompetence and playing the ultimate victim. Because this is where the dark psychology really shines.
It's incredibly manipulative.
It is a masterpiece of manipulation. They adopt a narrative of chronic dysphoria. They will make self-deprecating comments constantly. They'll say, I'm just not good at this, or nobody ever notices the work I do. Now, to an empathetic partner, this sounds like humility, or maybe depression. But it isn't.
No, it's not.
It is a highly calibrated fishing expedition for compliments, reassurance, and validation.
Sighs heavily. That's not depression. That is weaponized guilt.
Exactly. They use this victimhood as a shield against any anticipated failure. Let me give you an analogy. Think of the narcissist's self-esteem as a bucket with a massive hole in the bottom.
Okay.
Now, a healthy person tries to patch their own hole. The covert narcissist doesn't. Instead, their passive aggression acts as a siphon. They are constantly draining their partner's emotional reserves just to keep their own bucket artificially full. They manipulate caring individuals into doing their work for them, taking on their responsibilities and serving as their emotional regulators.
And that siphon is clinically devastating for the target. They drain the victim completely dry. By playing the eternal victim, the covert narcissist induces their partner or even their child to take full responsibility for their well-being.
The partner basically becomes a full-time caretaker.
Yes, and the victim sacrifices their own needs, their own boundaries, their own identity, just to keep the narcissist from spiraling into another sulk. It leaves the victim feeling utterly exploited and empty. I mean, they lose their sense of self entirely because every ounce of their psychological energy is diverted into stabilizing this bottomless pit of a person.
Look, I completely agree with the outcome you're describing, but I have to push back on the reasoning here. Because it seems to ignore a fundamental contradiction in the narcissist's pathology.
What do you mean?
Well, how does the narcissist sustain this illusion of being the helpless victim without getting caught in a contradiction of their own grandiosity?
I'm not sure I follow.
Grandiose narcissists believe they are gods. Covert narcissists also believe they are gods, just unrecognized ones. So how do they tolerate playing the pathetic, helpless victim when their core pathology demands superiority? Doesn't playing the victim contradict their need to be superior?
That is a compelling question. But have you considered the mechanism of self-image dissociation?
You mean how their self-perception splits?
Exactly. The covert narcissist actually has a split self-structure. They do not have a cohesive identity. They oscillate violently between inflated, grandiose pride and toxic, crushing shame.
So it's not a stable self.
Not at all. When their grandiosity isn't validated by the world, they collapse into that negative self-image.
Wait, so they genuinely believe they are worthless in that moment? Or is it just an act to get attention?
In that specific moment, the shame is viscerally real to them. But here's the insidious part. They don't process that shame internally like a healthy person would. They completely lack the emotional maturity to sit with it, so they immediately project it outward.
Right.
Playing the victim isn't just a tactic. It's a way of forcing the outside world to manage their toxic shame for them.
So they externalize the internal collapse.
Yes, and it is deeply confusing to live with. One minute they are subtly hinting that they're the smartest person in the room, maybe making a condescending remark about a mutual friend, and the next minute they are threatening a depressive collapse because they were slightly criticized. It traps the victim in a relentless cycle of trying to stabilize a constantly shifting reality.
But if they are oscillating between grandiosity and shame, as you say, they must have a mechanism to resolve that cognitive dissonance. I mean, they can't accept the shame, so they literally have to edit the past, which brings us precisely to covert gaslighting. I actually call this the Assyrian Empire strategy.
The Assyrian Empire? I like that. How does that work?
Well, ancient Assyrian kings would literally chisel the names of their rivals off stone monuments to erase defeats. They altered the physical record so they were never seen as losers.
Wow.
The covert narcissist does this psychologically. They aggressively rewrite interpersonal history.
They chisel away the victim's reality.
Exactly. They erase any of their failures, embarrassments, or cruelties. If they lashed out at you yesterday, today they will calmly insist it never happened, or that you provoked it, or that you are misremembering the tone. But the key here isn't just that they're lying.
Right.
They are forcing their environment to accept a completely fabricated reality where they are perpetually blameless and uniquely special. And they utilize their cold empathy here perfectly. They know exactly what actually happened, but they feel absolutely zero affective remorse in lying straight to your face to protect their fragile ego.
And this is exactly what trips victims up. It's why I use the term structural gaslighting.
Structural gaslighting, how is that different from regular gaslighting?
When we say structural gaslighting, we aren't just talking about someone lying about leaving the fridge open. We mean the very foundation of the relationship, the structure itself, is built on this false premise that the narcissist is a helpless, misunderstood genius, and you are their failing caretaker.
The whole relationship is a manufactured reality.
Yes, and this constant rewriting of history is what fractures the victim's psyche and leads directly to complex PTSD. Because the manipulation is so quiet, so devoid of the overt screaming and hitting we normally associate with abuse, the victim develops severe self-doubt. The structural gaslighting makes the target into their own most reliable prosecutor.
They start doing the gaslighting to themselves.
Exactly. And here is the ultimate clinical irony. The people who are sitting in my office, losing sleep, wringing their hands, and asking with genuine dread, "Am I a covert narcissist?" They are almost always the victims suffering from CPTSD.
Right, because true covert narcissists lack the capacity for genuine remorse or sustained self-confrontation.
Exactly. A covert narcissist doesn't spend their evenings agonizing over whether they are toxic. Their psychological defenses protect them from that kind of painful self-reflection. They are perfectly insulated by a certainty that others have failed them.
So when the victim exhibits bad behavior, snapping, yelling, pulling away, it's coming from a completely different place.
Yes. The CPTSD survivor is driven by fear. Their defensive behaviors, the withdrawal, the sudden anger, the emotional distance, they are adaptations to sustained danger. They are fear-based. The narcissist's behaviors are entitlement-based. They might look like the same surface behaviors, but they have entirely different engines.
So, to synthesize the behavioral profiling perspective we've discussed today, we are observing a dangerous, highly antagonistic condition. Covert narcissism hides behind a veil of introversion and vulnerability, but it is heavily reliant on cold empathy, micro-insults, and passive-aggressive control tactics. They are predators perfectly camouflaged as prey, using their partner as an emotional siphon to secure dominance and regulate their own fragile self-esteem.
And to synthesize the clinical reality for the victims, the invisible red flags of this disorder lead directly to complex trauma. The victim's reality is dismantled piece by piece through structural gaslighting and weaponized guilt, leaving them carrying the burden of fleas and betrayal blindness. Recognizing these specific, quiet patterns, understanding why your brain is filtering out the abuse, is the first and most crucial step toward breaking that blindness and protecting one's sanity.
Untangling this web requires us to hold both of these chilling realities simultaneously. The predatory mechanics of the disorder and its devastating psychological aftermath are inextricably linked. We have to look at the camouflage, but we also have to look at the nervous system of the person standing next to it.
There is so much more to uncover in the study of dark psychology. We've barely scratched the surface of how complex these subtle dynamics really are. But understanding them allows victims to finally stop blaming themselves.
Absolutely. We return to where we began. When the silence in your home feels calculated, when the vulnerability feels like a demand, remember that not all camouflage is meant for hiding. Some of it is meant for hunting.